side.
Something's wrong.
And there's no point in telling people you're not ready because you're ready or not. Yeah.
Recording in progress.
I'm going to wait until 1 p.m. to start the meeting. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Michelle Jones, Corporate Officer for the Kentucky Regional District, and I'm going to call this Committee of the Whole meeting for January 28, 2026 to order. The first order of business is the election of the chair. We'll call upon the membership for nominations for position of chair. Director Brander.
I'll nominate Director McCormick.
Director McCormick, you've been nominated. Do you accept?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. I'll call a second time for nominations for position of chair.
I was actually thinking we had a second, so did they mistake me?
I'll call a third and final time for nominations for position of chair. There's no other nominations have been received. Director McCormick, you are now chair of the Committee of the Whole.
Thank you.
Oh, no, it's okay. No. All right. Thank you. Apologize for the few minutes to get myself organized here. And thank you very much for allowing me to remain as chair. I would also acknowledge that the meeting is taking place on the traditional territory of Tla'amin Nation. Directors, you have the agenda in front of you. Can I please have a motion to approve the agenda as circulated? Director Gisborne, Director Elliott, any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Adoption of the minutes of December 11th. Are there any errors or omissions? Seeing no hands, a motion to adopt, please. Director Elliott, Director Gisborne, thank you. Any discussion? Seeing no hands, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. All right. So the next item of business is presentations from our volunteer fire department. And this is a quarterly report. So I'm not sure who wants to go first, or if you want to come together. But I would invite you to come to the table now. And if you'd sit along that table there so that your faces can be captured by the computer. And then you'll be on the screen. Oh. Sorry? I'm sorry, she's Bill Ashworth.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to come talk to you guys. Oh, sure. I'll just go right into it then. We've got a really slow quarter this last run around. We only had 56 incidents to deal with, and half of those are first responders. We had 12 ambulance assists, 30 first responders, 1 vehicle fire, 4 vehicle incidents, some public surface, some rescue safety, and false alarms. So it's a little less than the last quarter, and it was a good way to end the year. We didn't have a lot of stressful incidents. Often we do in December and in January. It's been actually quite slow for this month as well, for whatever reason, and that's good. We still have 28 volunteers on the in-service roster, and most of them are attending. We have a full recruit class, and we've got that all up and running with the Justice Institute, and we've got our training officers set up, and we've got our evaluators set up. We're working in conjunction in some mutual training with the local area departments, Powell River, Diamond, as well as Northside. So we're going to be trying to do more training events together. And we've also been looking at and discussing as the fire chiefs in the group, revisiting our automatic mutual aid agreement. Our mutual aid agreement has come up for renewal, and that's something we have to look at too. It might need to be tweaked a little bit, but as well as doing that, we really would like to move forward with an automatic mutual aid agreement for critical incidents. so structure fires and the like. It's for the benefit of all the departments in the region, as well as for the firefighters themselves to have the knowledge that we have more support coming, right? When you're just going out to a structure fire at 2 a.m, oftentimes you won't know that, hey, we should probably call them for some more help. It's nice to know that help is already coming, especially when you're already out there with 2 or 3 fully qualified firefighters, and you could be there for 10 hours, right? It's nice to know there's relief already coming to help with the initial attack, and we don't have to consider it. So I urge you when that comes forward to just consider it seriously, and I'm more than happy to discuss it and answer any questions when the time comes. That's all I got.
Thank you very much. Bill, hang on for a moment, because directors may have questions of you. So I'll throw this out now. Are there questions of directors? Director Gifford?
Thanks for coming in. I recall, what was it? We had 32 volunteers in service in the last quarter, and now we're down to 28. I think it was 9 volunteers above 60% training. What are we at for 60% training above currently?
14 volunteers above 60%.
Well, that's good. We've gone up by 5.
Our overall number is down, but our participation is up. We're finding often our training room is not large enough for everybody anymore.
Good news.
Trying to figure out that will be next. So the next thing on the roster will be, where's our new fire hall going?
Yeah,
So we can get a training room.
I've never heard that.
That's a brand new one. Yeah.
Well, there's a community works funds, but that's a separate discussion right now.
Thank you, Director Lennox.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks for your presentation. It's in, I think, the 57-ish calls is over like a 3-month period since we last
That's correct,
reported.
yes.
Yeah, thanks. And it's interesting that it has quieted down, so that is a great thing. I mean, for the community and for responders too. To get a bit of a,
You know, it's the ebb and flow. We haven't made any adjustments to our protocols. It's just the way it's worked out.
So thanks. I was going to ask you, you mentioned what a fairly high number of ambulance assists. I mean, from my past, I remember that. And my question is sort of, is there any change in the AMPDS, which is the automatic dispatching system? Are you required to my question is, are you assisting the ambulance more and doing sort of less actual first responder? Has there been any change there?
The change is the way that I've chosen to report that from now on. And that is that basically if ambulance is there before we are, and that is an ambulance assist, it's not a first responder, just to clarify it so that in the future we have more accurate data as a group here to make decisions moving forward.
That's a very interesting, and I actually appreciate your approach on that one. And just finally, I am interested in, understanding in the past we've had mutual aids, and I look forward to sort of whatever the idea is, I'm sure, between all the departments and resources we have in the region for sure. I know that feeling that you mentioned, being on the front lines and knowing that help is coming. So thanks for that.
Okay. Thanks, Director Lennox. Director Paul and then Director Southcott.
Thank you. And thank you for coming to us. I always find these reports very interesting. I'm really interested in the automatic mutual aid agreement, and I expect we'll see it. But I do have a question from a Leases perspective, and I'd like to ask you from your perspective. So, of course, it'd be very difficult to have a mutual aid agreement where Malaspina Fire Department brings a truck over or apparatus. That's kind of challenging. But I guess the question would be, is there any consideration or possibility about a mutual aid in the form, because some of the incidents, like fires that might last longer than, a few hours, but might be, aid, like you mentioned, a couple that might be really quite long, in terms of remote support and or personnel coming over and using our perhaps more limited equipment, or the other way around. But, for example, if Leases had a longer fire, the possibility for Malaspina department members to come over by boat or something and helping if needed. So that's
yes, absolutely. So in our discussions that we're working on, the mutual aid agreement would be for all the departments in the district, including Leases and Savory Island. And in that, we would be able to work out what kind of manpower we'd send, how we would send it, how we get there. Are we going with the Coast Guard? Are we going with a private contractor? These are all things that would be hashed out over time with, with a big collaborative effort. We've had discussions with Texada Island where, they might need some manpower right away and they'd like to know it's coming, but more importantly, they need a couple tenders. And so it'd be specific to the types of calls and the location what would be deployed. It's not gonna be every time there's an incident, everybody just takes everything, because that would be ridiculous, right? So we're trying to take real consideration to the possible events that could take place, including on Muskegon Island, and how we could get our manpower there.
Great, thank you.
Hey, thank you. Director Silva.
Thank you, and thanks for coming. You may be aware the city council has directed the city fire department to change its response protocol to reds and purples, basically. And what is the response level that your department and the regional departments respond to on ambulance assist?
It's very similar. I believe it's orange, reds, and purples, but really it comes down to the delay of the ambulance, right? If it's expected that the ambulance is going to be more than 10 minutes, we automatically get dispatched, even if it's just a very minor thing. And I'm not sure how that's being applied and if it's being applied correctly. That's something that would have to be worked out with BCHS. And to see exactly what's going on and if all the times were dispatched, if it's really being considered appropriately.
Yeah, I'm aware that the delay times also have normally been factored in, so you can pretty much count on a response south of Myrtle Rocks then, as I remember being very attentive to times. Thank you. Another question if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
I remember some change back a while ago, but I don't remember clearly what it is, and I think it was in process last time I questioned this in my own mind, but for structure fires in particular, it's a high stress work environment for firefighters. Does BC Ambulance still or BCHS still provide health monitoring for like vital signs monitoring, etc., for firefighters involved in a loss like that?
Officially, no. BC Ambulance will stand by in case there's a critical incident, a safety incident involving a firefighter or the homeowner or whoever. But for the rehab and taking the vitals and everything, I think they decided to not accept that responsibility.
Well, that would be the kind of situation you're describing in my view. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Thank you.
My question has to do with the mutual aid agreements as well. Most of the fire departments are here that would be negotiating with you, and so they're part of already being notified. Is the city fire department like, how does the process work? And I don't know if this is a question for staff or for yourself. When those come due and are up for renewal or somehow, how does the city fire department engage in that process? Is it through request from the regional district, or does it go directly to the city? And the reason I'm asking is if I'm to be supportive of the process, I kind of need to know how it's going to go.
Yeah.
With the chair, the mechanics are, once we've established that agreement, then dispatch automatically calls whoever is the required attendee.
So the regional district through Ryan likely will contact our chief and no? Oh,
Correct. Excuse me.
to get to the agreement in the first place, I mean.
Chair, I think we need a little bit of history on this.
Yes, please.
We used to have automatic aid. And then at one juncture, the city came to us and wanted to do automatic aid and charge us for it. And the board of the day said, you're gonna charge us, and we don't wanna have the automatic aid. We were basically really only looking at, what section is that where you guys have to travel through the city to get to?
Then Nootka.
Basically, what we were looking at, the automatic aid would kick in basically all the time.
Okay.
All right, so.
Because I remembered a little bit of that, but I couldn't remember exactly what it was about, so thank you.
Yeah, so from our perspective, it would be up to the city proper to approach the regional district in redeveloping conversation about mutual aid,
Okay,
or I should say auto aid.
okay, thank you.
Is there anything further? Right, Brandon?
One quick one. I know we've discussed this in the past about having continuity with equipment across the different fire halls. Where are we with that? Like, can the hoses be used by north side and all that other stuff?
I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
I do know that on our apparatus, we have adapters to work with the Powell River hydrants and Powell River departments. So we have adapters for just about every contingency, including forestry, and that kind of thing. So,
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, round 2 of questions. Director Gisborne?
Thank you, Chair. When we did our tour in Area B this last August, we went up to the works yard and there's the big water tanks there.
yes.
And we found out that they weren't full of water because they get filled up by the gutters. Hopefully we don't have a summer where there's lots of fires, but just in case, is there any alternative method of filling those tanks? Or can the tenders be used, say, to get an alternative source and then to keep those tanks topped up, or do we have to wait for rain or?
Our intention is that if we do end up using that water, that we would fill them back up after the event with the tenders.
Okay. Well, if you ever need water, I got lots.
Okay, any further questions? Seeing no hands, Chief Ashworth, I want to thank you very much for your presentation and for keeping us in the loop regarding what's going on at Malaspina. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Good day.
Eve Rowe, you're welcome to come up, our new fire chief at Northside. So welcome.
Thank you for having me. This is my first meeting as chief. We have 36 volunteers in the roster. Maybe around 25 of them attend at least 60% of their practices. We practice every week. We took a break between Christmas and New Year because Wednesday is our this night and ended up falling on Christmas Eve and New Year's Eve. We've had 22 responses this quarter. Most of them were first responder. During the winter, we don't generally have a lot of fires. We do attend sometimes chimney fires, but nothing major so far. Compared to the previous quarter is kind of difficult because during the summer we have more fires. We've been pretty lucky the last few years. We haven't had anything major, even though it's fairly dry. So we're kind of always preparing for what could come in the future. Yep. And as Bill mentioned, we're working on the mutual aid. And I guess part of another piece to add to this is when a department would be dispatched to another area, another department would be able to kind of fill in the gaps if we have to take some people out of area so that the area is still always covered. And if we do get a call in our area, then we would take priority. We would kind of cancel or response and attend to our call. And, yeah, pretty much all I have.
Okay, well, thank you, Chief, for your presentation. Questions of directors. Director Elliott.
So our previous welcome and congratulations on your appointment.
Don't be afraid. Yeah.
Northside Fire Department. We used to get from the Northside Fire Chief really wonderful videos. So my question is that something you're going to try to do in the future, or
Yeah, I'll try
or are
to.
they gone with the old chief?
We'll talk to Kimberly about it.
Yeah, that pretty much relies on one person, and she does take quite a few videos every once in a while. So next time,
I just really liked the videos.
Yeah.
I could see my friends in them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And yeah, we all love the videos. It really does make Northside look pretty good. So I think Chief Brown liked having that in his back pocket too. But it really shows, a whole bunch of things come to mind. But your youth program, I mean, hopefully, are you planning to continue that? Because I think there's a massive strength in, first of all, training our youth to then maybe stay in our communities to provide service, but even just prepare them for life. So.
Yeah, oh, certainly. We're gonna keep the junior program going. It's all dependent on volunteers.
Yeah.
So it's as long as we have members that are willing to spend the time, because they're not paid when they do this.
Yeah.
And they do that on their own time. They're all pretty keen on keeping going with the program. I guess the other thing I should have mentioned is we did have a patient during Christmas that required CPR, and we did revive him.
Really?
And that was quite impressive.
Nice work.
Our members were there really quickly, and
Bravo.
they were able to bring back. Next thing I know, I turned around and the patient is walking. So it was quite amazing.
Awesome. Yeah, that is awesome.
That's a good news.
First responder is a big part of our program. It's the bulk of our response.
Maybe just a quick follow-up, couple points. So we've been talking about mutual aid. I know it's a regional discussion, but even currently, and it might be for staff, but thinking about having Tla'amin and their lands and the hotel in particular right in the heart of our, they're in our community, we're in their community, but what about if responses to that particular facility, how are they being handled now? Does Tla'amin have to actually come all the way from Tishosham and come all the way out?
No, we respond to everything within our area.
Okay.
It's part of our.
Good, that's comforting.
Yeah.
I would hate to see the opposite, so.
Yeah, no, it doesn't make sense to.
Thank you.
Require them to move all the way up.
Good.
And they're part of the discussion with Auto Aid.
Right on,
So
okay.
it's gonna be we're trying to make it a regional agreement.
Good.
So we'll see, it's still early discussions, but you'll see an intent letter coming up pretty quick.
Thanks,
And
and
from there, we'll kind of try to streamline a little bit what side of response is going to be needed, what type of equipment is needed, because everybody's going to require different things.
Mm-hmm.
And we're not going to respond to everything. And it's always going to be dependent on who's available. Being volunteers, we don't always have the manpower to attend.
So thanks for that answer, and another, I remember how many times the department responds to that facility, even for false alarms, so I just wanted to mention that. And then finally, congratulations, I was able to come to your Christmas party, which was awesome. And how, what can you say, but just to watch the transition, the article in the Peak, like it's just great. Thank you for stepping up.
Welcome.
Thank you, Director Lennox. Any other questions? Director Gisborne, Director Southcott.
I guess it's kind of a question for our staff and both fire chiefs. Do we have a timeline for when the auto aid report or kind of thing is going to come before us?
Yeah.
Through the chair, as I tried to explain a few minutes ago, we expect that letter to talk about it should come from the city of Powell River. It was the city of Powell River that addressed the QRD board and say, would you mind doing this and doing it in a paid format? And the board said no. So I think to revive it and restart those conversations, the city of Powell River Council has to approach the board.
So if we want to, we just gotta wait. Or if we want to do something different, we direct our staff to move forward on it.
Through the chair, I would say ask the city to come to us.
Okay.
They initiated it.
Thank you, Director Gisborne. Director Southcott.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I was going to say that part of Bill's area is within 10 minutes of the in the city where the ambulance station is, but none of your areas. So what you're providing is such a lifeline for your community. And there's nothing more wonderful than seeing somebody survive from a resuscitation call. It's my experience.
Never happened to me before.
Amazing.
But it does.
The question, and I was assuming this, but I'm dangerous. The Paul River Fire Chief is part of your chief. The quarterly chief meetings are still happening, including the Paul River Fire Chief, aren't they?
Yeah.
Okay.
We actually just had not the full regional chief just before this meeting, but that was a meeting that we discussed photo aid and what it would look like, and kind of start looking into what it would be.
That's comforting to hear that. And I was always included when I was ambulance chief here. The current ambulance chief is included in those meetings, is he not?
Yeah, but he couldn't attend today.
Okay.
And that one is specific to fire, so I'm not sure he was invited, but he's usually there with the quarterly meetings.
Okay, great. Thank you. It's comforting to know, people are talking to each
Yeah, no, it's important to have everybody on the table.
Thank you.
Not seeing any further hands, so Chief Perot, I want to thank you very much for being here and for your presentation.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you. We have one registered delegation. Mr. Bob Harris, and you are president of the Saltery Bay Harbour Authority. So please join us.
Thank you.
And we'll look forward to your presentation. Okay, and Nancy, yes. Okay, well, welcome to both of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Department of Fisheries and Oceans Small Craft Harbors program is divesting of non-core harbors across Canada over the next 3 years. Saltery Bay Harbour has been classified as a non-core because it does not support a major fishery. However, this classification does not reflect the harbor's true strategic, economic, and public value to the Catholic Regional District. Saltery Bay Harbour represents a unique opportunity for Catholic to retain a high-value public asset with minimal operational responsibility. The harbour is already effectively operated by Saltery Bay Harbour Authority, and as a representative of Saltery Bay Harbour Authority, I respectfully request that the Catholic Regional District engage with the Harbour Authority to acquire control of the Saltery Bay Harbour from the Department of Fisheries and Oceans, while continuing to delegate day-to-day operations to the Saltery Bay Harbour Authority through a collaborative management agreement. Saltery Bay Harbour is a critical marine gateway into Catholic. It provides access for visitors and boaters traveling to Powell River, Princess Louisa Inlet, Hardy Island, Nelson Island, and the Sunshine Coast Trail. The broader reaches, these visitors bring in more than $300,000 annually in outside spending into Catholic by purchasing food, fuel, marine, and automotive services, directly supporting local businesses and jobs. The harbor also serves as a key staging point for local permanent residents and a significant number of returning part-time recreational residents. These residents of Hardy and Nelson Island may arrive from the outside region, but they rely on Powell River for food, supplies, maintenance service, and materials to support and maintain their recreational properties. In addition, the harbor also supports essential local commercial activity. It provides moorage and parking for crew boats and water taxis, serving the logging, gravel quarrying, oyster farm, fish hatcheries, and the trades active on Hardy and Nelson Island. This activity supports over 20 permanent jobs, more than $500,000 annually in direct economic benefits from island building activity alone, and over 15 seasonal trade jobs. Saltery Bay Harbour also plays a vital public safety role as a key launch and staging site for EFO, park rangers, BC Hydro, search and rescue operations. The harbor provides safe, protected marine access in an area where weather conditions can change rapidly, and it offers critical redundancy when road access is disrupted by storms, ferry outages, or landslides. For coastal region like Catholic, marine access is an essential component to emergency preparedness. The harbor is well maintained and environmentally responsible facility. It has no piles and no encapsulated styrofoam, significantly reducing environmental risk and avoiding the costly remediation challenge faced by many older harbors. Saltery Bay Harbor Authority also maintains a strong financial reserves and does not carry any hidden environmental liabilities. Finally, Saltery Bay Harbor benefits from strong user and community support. Users have demonstrated this commitment by supporting a doubling of fees effective January 2026 to ensure long-term sustainability. This provides a clear path forward, cost recovery, and continued local employment. Saltery Bay Harbor Authority has also done all maintenance for 20 years. The federal government has only put in, last summer they put in one main beam down the main dock. All other maintenance underwater and on top has been done by Saltery Bay Harbor Authority and paid for by Saltery Bay Harbor Authority. In closing, the Saltery Bay Harbor Authority is a long-term public asset that supports regional access, economic activity, and environmental stewardship and public safety. It strengthens Cathet's role as a service hub and delivers ongoing value through effective local management. The loss of public control or privatization would negatively impact the local community and divert economic benefits to neighboring regions such as Pender Harbour, Egmont, and Sechelt. The question is not whether Cathet can afford to steward Saltery Bay Harbor, but whether it can afford to lose it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Maggie, did you have anything to add?
I've been asked by Bob because I also own a property in the area and we actively use the harbor for our boat, and sort of wanted to assist Bob in making this presentation. This is a big change by the government, the federal government divesting these harbors, and it's a big change in control and with regards to the lease hold of the and the responsibility for the areas. So that's kind of my presence here as a support person, and then we put together the presentation and try to provide you with as much information as we have. We also have some user information. Sorry for my.
Yeah, you can see by the user. You go ahead.
By how much is actually being used. So each of these numbers represents payment for a monthly lease or space for your boat, and we've categorized them as recreational. So individuals that use it for recreational purposes, they probably own properties on Hardy or Nelson on in the area, and then they lease space on the wharf in order to keep their boat there so they can access their boat access only properties. And then a large proportion is commercial. We have a lot of traffic with the people going in and out through the harbor and down Jervis Inlet, providing workers to various cruise sites. And of course we have transit people. So there are travelers through the area who will stop. Maybe they'll stop for a day or two, and emergency as well, boats that come in and use the harbor itself as an emergency takeoff or return position. And there are permanent residents as well that use the harbor. So it is an important piece of land and an access point for the area. And we're just very concerned about the changes that are coming down the line, and thought that the regional district would be the entity to approach to ensure that this does not go towards a private type of situation or to be handled by a less long-term entity than such as the regional district.
The other thing also is we're not looking for any money from the regional district. The harbor can support itself. Main thing we need is for somebody, and I guess this is what DFO is looking for, is somebody stable that will. So what we want to do is we'll do a management thing. The Catholic Regional District would take the lease, and we would report to them, and we would take care of all the maintenance, and we could do whatever you required, quarterly, yearly report. Like now we give a yearly report once a year to small craft harbors with how much come in, what was spent, that sort of thing. So we could work on that later. Like,
Okay, thank you for that. I'll throw it open to directors, Director Brander first and Director Gisborne.
Thanks, Chair. I don't know, thanks for coming here today. I don't know if you're aware of it, but we're actually considering a motion to be brought to AVICC later on today that deals with this issue.
Saw that.
Yeah,
We
so.
just saw it, as we were sitting there, we we're chatting, going, look at what is on the agenda.
Yeah, we're gonna be talking about that later on this afternoon, but I was wondering if you'd seen an increase in traffic since Hummingbird Cove is no longer available.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Hummingbird Cove is totally destroyed now.
Yeah.
And the thing about Saltery Bay is it's the only access that you could have. If we lose it now, there's nowhere else you could put a dock in that's not exposed to the weather without putting in a huge breakwater.
Mm-hmm.
And Saltery Bay is such an access to that end of Powell River District.
I know that I can just continue here real quick. A lot of the commercial guys have been using the Saltery Bay boat launch, which is not in great shape, and these big barges and stuff like that coming in cause it more harm. Is there the possibility of putting in a launch down at near the harbor down there?
No, because it's where that would go, it's so shallow that it would have to go so far that it just wouldn't work. I mean, when you come in on the ferry, if you look over to the right, there's a hump of gravel there that's sticking up. Well, the loggers built that years ago. They pushed it up with hats. And they would drive their equipment that they wanted the barge to pick up out on top of that and let the tide come in. When I first moved here 50 years ago, we would always say, well, I don't think the barge will make it today. It's going to get flooded. And every day the barge would get there just as the water's at the tracks and they drive it on. So it's just so shallow there that it just wouldn't work. I mean, that would be wonderful if there was one. It's already.
Yeah, because I know not having a boat launch down there has been a real hardship. And if there was one, it would just open up Jervis Inlet.
Yeah.
To everybody. Yeah, thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Director Brander, Director Gisborne.
Thank you. This reminds me of something I heard about as a child when the federal government wanted to divest, I believe it was Savory Island and the Texada docks. And some, what is it? Sometimes they say history rhymes and sometimes it just plagiarizes itself. So it's really interesting to actually see with this case, you've got your group, you've got good reserves, you've got good cash. And I guess the question is, so regional districts, we silo our services. So Savory Island dock, that's a service that only Savory Island pays for. And Texada's dock, that's one that only Texada Island pays for. And I'm wondering, has there been any discussion with, say, the Sunshine Coast Regional District? Because if we were to, say, create a service, it shouldn't hopefully cost any money, but Nelson and Hardy are on the Sunshine Coast Regional Districts. Have you had any communication with them?
No, we haven't actually, but that's a good point. We could approach them too to see if they would cough up some. I mean, the way it is right now, there's enough money coming in to do all the repairs of what's necessary. I mean, I just had the divers there 3 months ago to do all the underwater things and make sure everything and repair whatever is needed there. The main dock needs some work done on it, but from what we understand, like this might be a dream world, but supposedly the small craft harbors will bring it up to a standard before they'll divest it to us.
That is their statement on their website, is that they are going to ensure that before the divestiture is completed, every asset is at a particular level.
Yeah, because this also reminds me, I've had some conversations with some folks on Nelson Island in the past 7 years, and every now and then they go, why are we part of Sunshine Coast? We should be part of Cathedral. So
they had to draw the line somewhere, and so they drove it right up the middle of Jervis End. That's what they did. So.
Yeah, no, I'm interested, and thanks for coming in. And I guess kind of the question that comes onto our side is, what silo can this fit into? And I also think a little bit about the Paradise Exhibition Park, where it falls into a silo, but then it's essentially leased to another entity, and we can just kind of sit back and be the holders.
I mean, it made sense to us to approach Cathet in this particular case, because I would say 90% of the users end up back here. So they may pay taxes on the other side, but they shop and they use and they purchase and they come here. And so it's really for this district that access harbor itself is important.
And the harbor is in our region.
And the harbor is.
It's there and working, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Director Gisborne. I have Director Lennox, and then I'm putting myself on the speaking list. Anyone else? Director Fall?
Yeah, I saw it. Thanks, Chair. Interesting, obviously, Lund, I'm a user in Lund Harbour, which has maintained its designation. And I guess my first question, I have a couple of thoughts and questions, bear with me. I think in your presentation, you said the feds did a 2020 evaluation. What is it, how many vessels does this facility require to maintain its commercial designation with the feds?
I don't know what the number
Like, you
really
know-
was. I don't think the feds ever came out with a number. What they did last, and they did this survey, it was so complicated that most of the harbors couldn't even deal with it. And now they've revamped it, they said, but like if you go like Powell River, of course, one whole section is commercial, and one must have enough commercial vessels in there. See, we have none right now. We have aquaculture, but we don't have
Well, yeah, thank you.
fishing vessels anymore.
Yeah.
It's the fishing vessel part.
Yeah, I know, and so I guess I even wrote it in quotations, like what's a commercial vessel? And I think that there's so many tentacles here, but one of the things I think to defend our assets federally in the condition they're in, whether it's Lund or Saltery Bay, there's some work for us to do to advocate around designating what is commercial. And these days it's around tourism. These days it's around other things that are not just commercial fishing. So anyways, that's that end of it. So I appreciate they really didn't define that for you. So I'd like to know that answer from the feds, and I'm going to be following up with Aaron Gunn and others on that. I was going to ask you what's the deadline sort of for this decision, and I think you said 3 years, but 3 years as of when?
Well, exactly. There's another one where because this has never been done before.
Okay.
Who knows where they starting up north? Or are they starting down here?
So we're in the process.
There's 101 docks on the coast,
Right.
and they're diverse in 49 of them. So where are they starting? Who knows? Like,
So they've already, sorry, Chair, I think they've already predetermined the number, and I think it's a tragedy myself because I understand all these uses. I've used the facility. I see all the points that you've made. I do think if it is going to be divested, that we should have a serious gander at it. And I guess my last point's around, well, two things. Has this been considered as part of the SWIA from the Sechelt Nation? And are you required to apply through that application for Foreshore and all that? I'm not sure.
I'm not sure I
Okay. Thank
have
you.
an answer for that
But,
though.
okay, sorry, sir.
I'm also trying to get a parking lot at Saltery Bay on Crown land. So we don't end up, like in the summer, there's 30 vehicles parked on the logging road.
Right.
2 summers ago, they towed them all away. That was a big enforcement. So I applied through BC Timber Sales to get a half-acre piece of property that we would take it's all alder. There's no, right across from the parking lot for the Sunshine Coast Trail. We got a half an acre. We could park 30 vehicles in there. We would just clear it, gravel it, and then people could just park there. And it would eliminate, otherwise it's going to end up like Lund where they're parked on the highway. There's so many now. And so I tried to get a hold of the Sechelt. I phoned them numerous times. I've left emails. I've left voicemails. No response. Absolutely none.
Thank you. I've got another question, but I'll let others.
Okay, all right, thanks. So I'll put you on for round two. So I had one quick question, and that's regarding other things like insurance. And what the requirements are, because I can't see this being zero cost to the regional district. So that's part one of my question, and part two is, since this serves primarily residents and property owners in the Sunshine Coast Regional District, I believe there should be an obligation on their part to contribute. So my question, second part is, have they contributed? Will they be? Have you talked to them? I know you say you haven't, but specifically about money.
I haven't as of yet. But some of the big ones, like this rock quarry that's in St. Vincent's Bay now, that's in regional district. And oyster farms and that are in, and a lot of the logging's done. But no, I haven't talked to Sechelt yet. And I agree, they should put some money in. You know, for the taxes they get from the properties on. There's about 105 recreational properties on Hardy and Nelson. And more coming all the time.
So thus far, the insurance, the liability insurance has been covered by Smallcraft Harbour. They provided that.
But they're not going to be providing
If
it.
they divest it, then they will not be providing it. So operational expenses have all been covered by user fees. So the user fees that we collect annually are used to build up the reserves for expenses, and they allow us to maintain our part-time employee, and they allow us to do all the maintenance that Bob has been talking about, including upgrades to the parking lot. We've paved it, we've extended it, and so on. So we are able to do that, but that has not covered the insurance thus far. Now with this coming down, this concept of the divestiture, the board met and discussed the concept of increasing the fees. And they decided, because they've actually kept them quite low for the last 20 years, that it should not be a problem, and they doubled them. And everybody paid. So we haven't had any pushback on the fact that people are paying twice the fees they paid last year, which will double our revenues. So the cost of the potential liability insurance we expect would be covered in that increased revenue from the future year. Although since we've never paid for it, we're not quite aware of what the cost may be, and potentially that's something that working with the regional district can assist us. Maybe there are ways you can, I don't know if the word is provide, but say how the insurance is done, and we would cover the cost. We would imagine that we would be able to pay for the liability insurance, so maybe there are different ways of organizing that. So that is a bit of an unknown at the moment, but the funds are there.
Thank you. That's good to know. Director Fall is next, followed by Director Elliott.
Thank you, and thank you for coming to present this to us. I mean, as you've articulated, and being on remote areas, these facilities are super important, if not essential. And your facilities, Small Craft Harbors, Lasqueti has two docks. One is Small Craft Harbors in Squiddy Bay, and the other is the Transport Canada wharf at False Bay, which is, there's fewer of them to Transport Canada, but they're completely different. They're different branches of the government, but they're still feds. And so I guess I have three short questions, because these concerns are coming up on Lasqueti all the time about both of them, and in particular related to your request. I've heard through our representatives on the French Creek Harbour Authority of the desire by Small Craft Harbors to divest 49, but not so many specifics. But I'll ask I have three short questions, if I might, Chair. They're quick answer ones, I think. One is, your presentation was great. Is that something that would be available to us? Would you provide that to us so we can peruse it a bit more? I found the numbers very useful.
Director Fall, I just want to make sure we're all okay, because we're into the red on the clock. So everybody okay with carrying on? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Go ahead, Director Fall. Sorry about that.
Okay. Sorry. Would you be able to make your presentation available to our staff so that the directors can see it and ponder the numbers a bit more?
Yes, and we've already provided it to you.
Okay, that's great. It wasn't in our agenda, or at least
yes,
my
version. We were a little late in the presentation, but you have it now. Yes.
Okay, that's great. I'll get it. It's because I'm here, so I don't benefit from the last minute. Oh.
It's at the very end of the package.
Hang on a sec. Corporate Officer?
Thank you, Chair. We actually added it as late attachment submission 16.1.
Oh, okay. Maybe I'm going from an old. Anyway, that's great. So that's number one, very easy. It's my oversight. Second is, have you, in communications with Small Craft Harbors, has Small Craft Harbors made any specific statements about this facility? And the reason I ask that is because we've been a lot of concern, there's been a lot of concern on Lasqueti, and people saying similar things to what you're saying. The regional district should consider this and so on. One of our residents reached out to them, and they said the high level thing, Small Craft Harbors is more or less articulating, we want to get rid of them. That's our policy, blah, blah, blah. But then this is a quote from the email I was forwarded. At this time, there are no immediate plans to transfer Squiddy Bay Harbor. So who knows what that means in terms of, the plans might change tomorrow. So I guess the question is, and it's sort of an urgency thing of how, have they made specific steps on this one yet?
The answer is no, not as of yet. We were sort of trying to be ahead of the game here. Is all we were doing. Like, they say it's coming. You don't know when it's coming. So we were just trying to get ahead and see where we stood with everyone.
No, absolutely. And I think that's exactly the right thing. That, of course, the longer the feds pay for it, the better, but and the time to prepare, but totally right move to start thinking about what would happen if and when they do, because you don't want to scramble. And the last short question is, the Sunshine Coast Regional District has been dealing with a facility on Gambier Island that you may be aware of that's been really difficult. They have a number of docks that they've taken over, but they have this one on Gambier Island, and they, that's been managed by Transport Canada, and they divested it. Well, they divested it a few years ago. They just did a feasibility study because the public there are, making requests like this to Sunshine Coast Regional District. Regional districts kind of become the owner of last resort because it kind of makes sense for service and so on. And that's, for us to figure out if we went down this road. But really, they did this in June 2025, very recently. Last summer, they completed a feasibility study for New Brighton Dock. So I don't know if you've seen that, but if you haven't, I would recommend taking a look at that. It's a bigger facility. The costs are higher, but I think the general information in there is something really useful both for yourselves and for us. So I guess, are you aware of that, and does that help?
We will look into that. Thank you.
If I can just.
It's available on their website, and I can provide a link if you need to. I'll send it to our corporate officer.
If I can just add back to your question, what is Smallcraft Harbour's saying? Bob, you were at a presentation in November.
Yeah, there was a meeting here.
There was a meeting where Smallcraft Harbours did provide a presentation called Smallcraft Harbours Managing Liabilities. And that's where they provided a lot of information about the different types of the definitions of core versus non-core. And the numbers that Bob mentioned, 101 and so on. And at the end, they say, Smallcraft Harbours will continue to engage with non-core HAs on the status of divestitures. And I don't believe anyone has directly engaged with us, but they definitely gave the information as we're coming.
Mm-hmm.
But they didn't know
Thank
it
you for
at that point either.
Well, thank you. And your numbers, I mean, the numbers of users, and I'm really encouraged to see the revenue and asset, the financial management you have, because that's very different from Squiddy Bay dock, which has a few users. It doesn't serve anywhere near that number. I mean, I'm sure the people using it pay, but their revenue would be, a fraction, if that, less than 10% of what you're talking about. So I think, the numbers are looking encouraging from what you're saying, but there's still if we went down this road, as Director Gisborne pointed out, it would be figuring out a service, and, there's a whole process there of what's the area being covered, and if there's engagement with Sunshine Coast Regional District for the users there, there's a so it might take time to figure out if we go down this path, but I think it's it's right to get talking about this sooner than later. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Director Paul. Director Elliott, you're next.
Yes, thank you. So I'm just wondering, is part of the divestation policy to transfer to local control?
Release.
To local control. And so your ask today is for us to engage in the process to do transfer, obviously. And
to receive it if the CFO agrees that the regional district is an entity that they want to divest to, that the regional district says, yes, we are willing to accept it.
Okay. So you're going to communicate, you're hoping they'll send some sort of inquiry to us and we would accept it. That's the ask? Okay, thank you. And then the other question I had was the government who is in charge right now is a federal agency, yes, whether it be the one or the other. If we are, and this is a question to staff about this, does the AVICC handle resolutions that go to FCM and UBCM, or is it a different process?
Could you repeat the question?
Does AVICC receive resolutions that go to FCM instead of UBCM?
Through the chair, I think the normal channel would be AVICC uploads it to UBCM.
Whichever. Oh.
Because UBCM would be your mothership that would then be at FCM.
Except for FCM is before UBCM.
This is BC versus FCM.
And so I'm wondering how we get things to FCM if the timing's all off.
We're not a member of FCM.
Oh, you're not? Oh, the city is. Okay, sorry.
Welcome to the regional
The
district.
city,
Anyway, so that's okay.
yeah, I'm sorry, it was an inappropriate question at this government, so, thank you.
Alright. Is that it, Director Elliott?
Yeah, I'll ask more questions when it comes up on the agenda. I just don't know how UBCM helps with a federal agency, but yeah.
Okay, so we're into round two. Director Gisborne, you were first on round two, followed by Director.
Oh, I think I was scratching my head, but I have a notice of motion that I'll send to our corporate office for officer for new business, and it's essentially committee recommend the board express its interest / intent to meet with the Sunshine Coast Regional District Board to discuss options and opportunities related to the proposed federal divestment of the Saltery Bay dock transfer foreshore and dock leases request from the Saltery Bay Harbour Authority. And that'll just be new business, and I guess it'll be discussed at the next meeting. And that's just one of the, because this is kind of a, I don't think there's a simple answer. It kind of has tentacles all over the place. So I think that's one of the opportunities of working with the lower coast, because of course this is kind of like a cross-boundary issue. And then, you know, before we say yes, we got to make sure all our ducks are in a row. So.
Thank you. Well, we have to come to agreement ourselves, Judy.
Yeah.
So, all right, thank you. You've made a notice of motion. Director Lennox?
Thanks, Chair. Just quickly, I think this is an example of a good news in the sense that you're getting a little bit ahead of it. A lot of the time we get things at the last minute and we have to scramble to make decisions. So appreciate the timeliness and that we have some homework that we can do both with our staff and ourselves to understand this. I appreciate the consideration of the other regional district. My question, sir, I was going to ask you about why your fees doubled in 2026, and I saw your revenues increase. And you've explained that with the parking with your moorage fees, which again, I was impressed that you were able to raise them to a reasonable price and not have people balk. The final part of that is, do you have a good understanding of your asset management? Because I've learned a lot in 3 years on the board about, sure, you can pay year to year, kind of that ongoing operational thing, but replenishing these assets over time. You've mentioned that there aren't pilings, there aren't some of the substantial infrastructure. I think you understand my question about, are you socking away enough for asset management? Do you think that the numbers you have now are sustainable no matter who owns it? Is that?
Maybe you might have something to say to that. But first off, the reason we kept the rates so low was it was all locals using it.
Mm-hmm.
Crew boats, everybody was in from Powell River.
Mm-hmm.
And so we only charged as much as we figured we needed, which was the rates when we took it over.
Mm-hmm.
And the rates were so low that when even anybody would come in, they go,
really? Yeah.
So now we doubled the rates. Now we're up a little bit above what everybody else is. Lund, we got the figures from everyone. We raised ours up. So now we should be able, because we realize you got to put money away for the long term. Like we do the boxes and that. The flotation boxes, I just bought 2. They're $3,000 a piece. We bought 2 just to have reserves, so if one goes down, we can put it in right away. So they're all in fairly good shape, actually. 2 of the docks are in really good shape.
Fingers, right? So you got.
Yeah, the fingers. Yeah. Main finger, the first one where the ramp comes down, it's the oldest. It was in Lund before.
Yeah.
When we had a brand new one built there, and then Fisheries took it out because there was a ferry captain would come in with the ferry. He threw such a wake that they put the 13-foot wide one. The other ones were 8 feet wide. So the 13-foot one is much more stable. So that one's getting up in age. I'm gonna have the diver come out again and do a complete survey on that dock. And just that dock. The other docks, he said they're in good shape. He said that one there's got some issues with.
Added them.
Yeah, the third finger was never there. We added that one on, and we added the airplane float onto the second finger.
And Bob, did the cost of the third finger came from your operational funds?
No, that was when we took it over in 2001.
And then who paid for that third finger?
That was federal paid for that. We got it to start with. That was one of the initiatives to get it. There wasn't enough spots. So now people say, well, why don't you expand it? We can't expand anymore. We're right on our lease line, and we can't go any further. The water gets too deep on the anchors. It just wouldn't work. So that's all we can do. But yeah, so we know that the main dock needs some work, but I don't think had a problem there and it had a tilt and the wharfinger got a hold of me and I went and looked and I thought there was boxes missing. Then we realized the lines to the anchors were too tight and those super high tides, something had to give and it actually pulled the dock under. So we can't remediate that till this fall, until the summer. The tides are low enough to get slack in those lines so we can give some more slack out. But it's just things like that that are ongoing. But the boxes and that, we've kept all up with the flotation and that, and we removed them all from the bottom last summer. Any ones that had sunk over the years, we removed them all and disposed of them.
So I think a large part of how well the space is handling it and how well the fingers are doing is the ongoing maintenance and the fact that we are paying attention. So we've got Bob and the other members of the group who are paying attention, who know what's going on, and we have our employee who goes there daily, and when she sees something, she lets somebody know. So it's not that it's going to get lost or forgotten, or a week later somebody will find out. It's instant and it is ongoing. And I think that really provides a lot of security and safety to the structure itself, and then how good shape it is.
Yeah, because the people who are using it report it right away. They're all locals, or everyone knows it. So if they see something, they'll report it. That something's anyway.
And then the first finger, the side closest to the ferry, that's the one that the loading zone is, and those are boats coming in and out. Nobody stays there more than an hour or two, or maybe they come in to go shopping in Powell River and then they're gone again. Whereas the other fingers are for more permanent, longer term storage.
Okay, thank you. Did that answer everyone's questions? Is there any further questions of the delegation? I'm not seeing any hands, so I want to thank you both very much for coming in. I'm sure we'll be speaking with you again. It's very interesting problem.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. There is no unfinished business. One item of correspondence, 8.1, which I'm going to ask to remove to be 9.1. So, if I may, speaking to 9.1, I'm going to have a question, and this is all going in the direction of proposing a motion that will respond to this item of correspondence. And my question will be to the corporate officer regarding governing legislation. So a bit of background, you will recall this issue was raised and considered in May of 2024. And I have here a report that was done by staff regarding the regional district approach to dog control issues. And primarily it says section 49 of the community charter empowers a peace officer to deal with it. And yet the person who has written to us the item of correspondence says she has reported both of these incidents to the local RCMP. However, officers have informed me that without a dog bylaw, there is nothing they can do to help. So my question to the corporate officer is what does section 49 of the community charter say? Is it the same as it was before when the last staff report was done? And is she incorrect in her statement in her letter?
Sorry, thank you. Through the chair, I don't know that they're incorrect. They might have just received the wrong information or not heard it, but yes, a peace officer, your RCMP has the authority. The legislation has not changed.
Okay, the legislation has not changed. All right, in that case, I would propose a motion that we respond to the complainant and explain that section 49 of the community charter empowers peace officers to respond to dog complaints. And if there's a seconder for that motion, I have a couple more words to say about it. Thank you, Director Southcott. So the whole point is she's misinformed through whatever reason, and we need to correct that information so that the process that's already established through legislation can play itself out. So she needs to know that the RCMP can respond. And so that's the point of my motion is to tell her that, and perhaps we should send a copy to the RCMP, informing them that we're copying them on the letter. Director Elliott, we're discussing the motion on the table.
Yes. So as far as I know, RCMP can enforce just about any act within the province. And the actual legislation that speaks to dogs was, I think, is the Dangerous Dog and the Range Act. And those specific laws they can enforce, but they can't enforce things that aren't there. For example, there is no law in BC that says you have to have your dog on a leash, for example. Or they can't be running around. It only specifically talks about reacting to an incident after it happens, and if that dog is considered dangerous or not dangerous, they can get a court order to put it down. Or in the Range Act, it empowers folks that are being attacked by dogs to, that's harming other domestic animals, it calls it, or people, that they themselves can act and put those dogs down. And so, or the police can. The gist of it is that if the RCMP respond to an incident, all of these avenues lead to putting the dog down. Anything less than that, they don't have any laws to enforce. And so that's something that a lot of people are not actually interested. They want to have enforcement for control of your own dogs, which there is no BC legislation for. And so that the real concern may be that we need something in the middle between provincial jurisdiction to put dogs down because they're misbehaving, and having, like, there's no laws about responsible ownership and not letting your dog go on the neighbor's property or whatever. And so this, I think it's that middle ground that the person may be looking for. And then they're correct in that case.
Thank you. Director Gisborne?
Thank you. I probably said this in 2024. Section 6 of the Livestock Act states, quote, a person may kill a dog if the person finds the dog that is A, running at large, and B, attacking or viciously pursuing a person or a domestic animal. So if the person says like, hey, this dog is on my property, as in it's running at large, and it's viciously pursuing my dog or pet or anything like that, call the RCMP, section 6, this dog has been violated, I'm requesting the RCMP to put this dog down. And I know of situations in area B where that's happened. Dog is out chasing livestock, property owner calls the RCMP comes out and says, what do you want to do with it? And the livestock owner says, well, the person that owns the dog might pay me damages, or maybe they say, dog's got to go. In which case they go and talk to the dog owner and they say, dog's got to go. So I think that just needs to be very clearly articulated to both the RCMP and to the property owner, that, and any dog owner should know that if your dog is running at large, you as the dog owner are liable for whatever that dog does. And if the dog's viciously pursuing, it doesn't say it says attacking or viciously pursuing. So just, barking and kind of nipping, not even a bite. Viciously pursuing is what it says.
Thank you. Director Gisborne, are you proposing an amendment that we also send a copy of the letter to the RCMP?
Yeah, I'll propose that amendment.
All right, is there a seconder for that amendment? Director Lennox, thank you. Discussion on the amendment, sending a copy of the letter to the RCMP. I'm not seeing any. Director Lennox, and then Elliott.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I do think it's important to be respectful of the RCMP. That's a tough balance that they're striking out in the community without, seeing things happen and going on limited information. That being said, in this day and age, we used to take care of these issues as per the legislation that Director Gisborne's put up in the rural areas, and that would be the end of it. But people aren't prepared to do that these days. The RCMP are the only ones that can take care of dogs that meet that criteria, and it doesn't happen very often. But what I'm saying is, if it comes to that point, we need those people to actually enforce the existing laws. So, thank you.
Thanks. Director Elliott.
I think the amendment's fine. I just wonder if we shouldn't also be citing which legislation the police can enforce. Because if people are calling the police show up and say, well, what do you want done? And they say, well, we want that guy to put a fence for his dog. Well, they can't enforce that, right? So people need to be clear that you phone the police if you want that dog put down. If you want something else, go work it out with your neighbor. We don't have either that or what it takes for Texada to have some bylaws would be actually creating a brand new service, and it's expensive for a rural area. And so people just need to understand, and I don't know if that letter should cite those pieces of legislation. The person who wrote that letter may not be misinformed. They may understand perfectly what it is, and what they think there should be is a bylaw that has that middle ground where the dogs don't get put down, but there's some control required. And to say they're misinformed is, I think, not quite right. I think what it is that they're looking for something that doesn't exist at this point, and that's what they want us to do something about. Anyway.
So maybe we can get clarification from our corporate officer. Would a letter, this is approved by the board and the main motion also, would that include the legislation in the chapter that it comes
That the RCMP has control over.
Yeah, that the RCMP has. Would those be cited in the letter? That's my question.
Yes, of course, yes. So we have a standard response to directing
That was my concern. Thank you so much.
citizens to that area, and we've communicated with the RCMP about the same matter. So
Okay, thank you. So anything for on the amendment, to send a copy of the letter to the RCMP. Seeing no hands, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried unanimous. All right, now the main motion, is there any further discussion on the main motion? Director Southcott.
Reflecting on what happens in the city, one of the main problems for bylaw enforcement, and the city does have an animal control bylaw that's referred to in this letter, is disputes between neighbors. When I read this letter, that's what I heard. And unfortunately, there's no bylaw enforcement officer in Area B. And so it's kind of stuck, the situation. It seems to me that the letter writer probably doesn't understand the real dimensions of this, and before go off trying to ameliorate the situation in a way that, police officers basically, as we've already discussed, don't have too many options. And I doubt if anybody over there is going to want to see what those options are to be enacted to solve the situation, because that will tear because of the consequent, almost inevitable divisions within the community. So I really wonder if discussion between, discussion with the letter writer on the part of someone, either it's the director or staff, to further look into this before we start writing letters wouldn't be more advisable. It's a difficult situation. It doesn't matter who tries to deal with it, but I don't think the RCMP are really equipped in a way that these people would the letter writer is probably going to be happy with. So, and that's not going to fix the situation. So that's why I'm thinking some discussion would probably be in order before we even take the route to the letter. I already have reservations, but I've been through it for years here in the city.
Thank you for your comments, Director Southcott. Is there anything further on the motion that is on the table? Director Elliott.
Further to Director Southcott's comments, the difference is in the city we do have bylaws, and there is lower levels of enforcement we can do, including fines or what have you. And so I don't know. I think they definitely should have someone speak to them along with the letter, but I don't know that not responding to the letter and trying to talk to them instead would be clear enough. So I take it under advisement that we're in an environment in the city where we actually have bylaws. And so those conversations we have some other backup to go with it. And in the rural area, we don't. And we're not the enforcers of the current provincial legislation.
Thank you, Director Elliott. I guess I put myself on the speaker list again. It's, we would love to have a middle ground, but we don't want to have a dangerous dog bylaw in the big farm Texada. Absolutely don't want to see a bylaw, but they don't want to see people being injured either. So writing this letter, they wrote a letter to us, responding with a letter back to them seemed like the appropriate response. So that's why I proposed what I proposed, which is responding in the manner in which they approached. I have to say about that. Anything further? Seeing no hand. All in favor of the recommendation? Okay, thank you. Any opposed? Carried unanimous. Okay, thank you. So reports 10.1 going to the AVICC. Is there a mover for this recommendation? Gisborne and Elliott, thank you. Any discussion? Lennox?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just quickly, I see the financial impact. It says last year was 400, however, costs are 26 are not yet known. Are we anticipating any major increases? I guess is the worst. Yeah, decrease would be great, but any idea? I mean, no fears out there. I mean, nothing's
I haven't seen anything.
business as usual, so.
Corporate officer?
We're not anticipating a large increase.
Good, thanks.
Anything else on this item before we call the question? Seeing no hands, all in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Okay, number 11, new business. Now, there are 4 recommendations here for resolutions to AVICC. We are allowed to put forward 3 of them. So I guess what I'd like to propose is that, first of all, we have a discussion before putting a motion on the table, and people are in agreement with that. And of the 4 resolutions, the person who is behind that, and I would take Director Brander for the library, maybe speak for 1 minute, if you can just do it in 1 minute, and really please explain why your resolution is there and why it's important. And if we do them in the order, is everyone okay with doing that? I'm not seeing anybody objecting, so. If anyone needs a 5-minute bio break, please say the words. You ready to get one?
Yes, I'd like a 5-minute bio break.
All right, well, now's the best time to do it before we get into a 5-minute break.
I have a question about the proposed process.
Huh?
I have a question about the proposed
Yeah.
process. And I don't know if I have to wait till after the break or just tell me what you meant. So each person's
Recording in progress.
Well, welcome back to Committee of the Whole. And we're about to start point 11.1. And that is a discussion regarding the motions that we're going to take forward to AVICC in April. There are 4 here. We can choose 3. So the proponent of each one has 1 minute. Please be succinct. And we'll begin with the first one with Director Fall, and then we'll have questions at the end. So hold on to your questions and your thoughts. Okay, go ahead, Director Fall.
Thank you, Chair. I'll call this the why I think this resolution should be one of our 3. This port, the False Bay Wharf, is an absolutely essential piece of infrastructure. Like we heard with the delegation earlier, the federal government is trying to divest. They've actually asked us in the past. We refused. We can't afford it. It would cost us, based on the Sunshine Coast feasibility study for New Brighton, it would cost Lasqueti Island approximately at least $400,000 a year to take it on. That's not feasible. Transport Canada, on one hand, says they would not dispose of it. On the other hand, they say they want to dispose of it. So they're inconsistent. We're simply asking them through this resolution to just accept that the remaining remote ports, and there are only a handful of them, I think 17, and there's that the Transport Canada commits to keep this. I've been collaborating on this with one of our local trustees, Tim Peterson, who's also on the executive of the Islands Trust, and the director for Sunshine Coast Regional District, Kate Louise Stamford, whose area includes Gambier Island, and she's also the Islands Trust director or the trustee for Gambier Island. Now they're both looking. The Islands Trust is looking to us to take the lead to this. There's uncertainty of whether the Islands Trust can get this approved through their process. They're looking to get the final wording from us. Our process is a lot more efficient. Trustee Peterson and I have also been in contact with our MP, Gord Johns, and has received this, and he's taking action on our behalf directly to the minister and supporting it. So he would be collaboratively supporting this. So I think it's really super important. If this dock was even out of service for a day, it would be really critical. It's essential infrastructure for our island, and I think this is a novel, a new thing. I reviewed all the past 10 years worth of resolutions in the database and couldn't find any that were directly related to this. So it's a new one that has not been considered. And I think it also directly, I expanded it just as in my last 2 seconds to not just focus on existing ports that have not yet been divested, but prior ones like New Brighton, and it would include the one on Savory. Savory was divested, and some communities can afford it. Maybe Savory can afford it. Maybe they're on the edge. New Brighton cannot, and some of them that get divested, the Transport Canada will not take them back. That's been made clear to the Sunshine Coast Regional District, but the federal government shouldn't continue this. If they divested False Bay, it would fall in the same category to communities that can't afford it. So we're just asking them to accept that there are some ports that the communities cannot take on through the regional district. I'm done.
Thank you, Director Fall. Okay, resolution 2. The reason this should be supported is because every regional district with an improvement district within their boundary needs to be concerned. Our experience from Lund has shown us that the policy of letting the province or letting it fold and go to the regional district isn't a good one because of the cost. Just because an improvement district folds and it can't do the work anymore, and then it gets passed down the line to the local government. The local government has no assurance of getting funding either. So it becomes a huge financial burden, which is why every motion that has come before UBCM regarding this has been supported at one level, but always turned down by the province because it doesn't fit the 2006 provincial policy statement that says improvement districts will eventually fold into the local government. So I take issue with that. This motion is in asking them to update that 2006 policy. So that's why it's here. Okay, motion number 3, Director Brander, you want to speak to that?
Sure, yeah, happy to. This isn't going to be anything new to anybody around this table. We've been looking for more funding for our libraries. Funding has been held stable since 2010. Meanwhile, populations have increased and libraries are serving all sorts of people. In numbers are up all over the place, and costs are escalating at an alarming rate. So we've been asking the provincial government to up the contributions to the library services to, I believe it's $30 million. And then add a cost of living increase every year. And I think we need to keep putting the pressure on them to do this because these libraries are just with a lack of funding every year because of the costs that are going up. What they can do with that money is going down, and we need to rectify the situation.
Thanks, Director Brander. Okay, on the fourth resolution, Director Gisborne.
Thank you, Chair. This is a brand new motion. There has been some discussion, as is provided in the background in the past, about residential flexibility on the agricultural land reserve. The current policy is that you can have 590 square meters of floor space, 500 for the primary dwelling, 90 for the secondary dwelling. And that a number of problems because, for one, not everyone needs a 500 square meter house. That's about 5,000 square feet. That's quite a lot. And the best way I was able to kind of think about it was actually with a pie. So let's imagine this pie is 590 square meters in total. This is about 15% is one single slice. And on farms, for example, I think the Blueberry Commons is doing this where they're actually doing smaller parcels. Right now, the legislation says, I eat this entire chunk to myself, and I can only have this one slice go to someone else. The proposal is, this is the maximum, and it's up to the property owner to cut it into as many slices that they want. The pie doesn't get any bigger. It doesn't create more residential footprint on the property. That's the amount of pie that you have. It gives the property owner some flexibility to kind of move it around, because here's the other challenge. What if this first slice of pie that's gone off is a little bigger than that 90 square meters? That means I have to cut chunks of it off in order to actually have that other, 500 square meter piece of pie. And that's where we're running into situations where there's an old house and then they're going to build a new house and they go, well, the old house is 1,100 square feet or about 100 square meters. And therefore you got to chop a bit of it off in order to actually build a primary dwelling. And that way the old dwelling can actually be under that 90 square meter. And that's kind of the thought. It's about reducing the amount of non-adhering residential land use applications that we get because it doesn't fit the actual letter of the legislation. And I'm trying to say, we need to get this back to the spirit of the legislation. And this has been coming up in a variety of regional districts. It's a brand new motion, and I think it actually fits with the provincial government's intention of their small scale housing development legislation of Bill 44. And yeah, I think it's a great idea. And I've talked to a number of farmers and they go, yeah, that makes sense. So I hope people support it. Thank you, Jen.
Okay, thank you. So we've heard from the four proponents of the resolution. Now I'm going to throw it open to discussion regarding all of the above. So Director Elliott, you're brave, you're going first.
I have questions.
Good.
And so I have questions for each of the points. And so I wouldn't make up my mind until after I have my questions answered. So should I go have a single question or just roll through all my questions?
Probably it would be easier to roll through all your questions and then each of us can. Is everyone okay with that?
Okay, I will start with the first one, which is the cease divesting of remote port facilities. My first question is AVICC the correct avenue for a resolution regarding a federal government matter? And then I'll ask them both and you can do whatever you like. The second question is pursuit of provincial support to allow for transfer in communities where it's not affordable a better resolution than trying to ask the government to change their policy on these things when the provincial government has no jurisdiction there?
Okay.
Those are my questions.
All right, and we'll turn that over to Director Fall.
So in terms of AVICC, yes, because we are the Association of Vancouver Island Coastal Communities, there has been a number of resolutions related to ports. In fact, last year, the Sunshine Coast Regional District put forward a resolution trying to address some of this. AVICC, AVICC advocates on behalf of us, and being coastal, I wrote it generally to address ports across these kinds of ports across BC, and they're all very essential. They're all remote. They're all in exactly the same. And the reason, actually, in the backgrounder, Transport Canada started with 449, and they've got that down to 35. They can say they got success. They need to accept that those 35 are all in that category. There's a reason why those ones are not there. They won't even, no one even wants them if they gave you $10 million. So the issue is, should AVICC? Well, if it's not AVICC, who? It may, and that's why, it may or may not go to UBCM. We'll see what happens at AVICC, but AVICC can forward it to FCM if needed. I think that's the appropriate way to do that, and so I do think it's appropriate. The second question was, is pursuit of transfer where it's not affordable? Well, that's part of the second piece. So, the remaining ones do fit all entirely in that category. I would hazard a guess every single one of these 35 remaining ports fits in the category like False Bay. There's a reason why they don't. The revenue's low. Low revenue. The only revenue on the False Bay dock is basically the ferry. There's almost no other users. The local people put moorings down. There's a float plane from Telus once in a while. Basically, the revenue would be a tiny fraction of the cost. So I think that would hold across all these remote ports across Canada. I mean, this is also why it's relevant. AVICC and then to FCM. There's ports in Quebec and there's ports elsewhere on the East Coast. And these ones will not, they're all in communities that can't afford it. So we need to band together. We need to get a voice from AVICC and then take that forward. And in addition, if AVICC even still feels that it's maybe has not as strong a voice at FCM, this would show support that would help the MP. And our MP would have the support and the voice of AVICC to take this to bat for us when he's able to sit down with the minister and advocate to keep what is absolutely critical infrastructure.
That brings up another question for me. If the major user of that facility is BC Ferries through contract with your provider, should we not also maybe be trying to meet with BC Ferries to find out if they're interested in acquiring that to protect their servants?
Okay, let me address that. So first of all, BC Ferries gives a contract to Western Pacific Marine. So BC Ferries does not use the dock. Western Pacific Marine does. Western Pacific Marine was building on contract the new ferry on Kootenay Lake. That was taken away from $60 million contract was just taken away from Western Pacific Marine by the province over December. And one of the subcontractors is suing them for $6 million. So we are talking with BC Ferries through the Ferry Committee about the viability of Western Pacific Marine and what happens if they go under. So Western Pacific Marine has no money in their contract. It's an operator's contract, and BC Ferries has no interest in our dock whatsoever in taking it over. It's not a BC Ferries terminal, nor is French Creek Harbour Authority, which is on the other side. So I think the Ferry Committee is engaging with the operator, Western Pacific Marine, and BC Ferries on it as much as we can, as much as they're willing to talk to us. But I'm pretty convinced that that's not a viable option. We've heard that pretty loud and clear that, they can barely run our ferry. We've got enough problems keeping the ferry going, let alone asking them to take on a structure that would cost hundreds of thousands. The most viable is for Transport Canada to continue maintaining it by 40 million Canadians paying a fraction of a cent, pennies per person, as opposed to 500 people on the Skeety paying an unaffordable amount. It would be, if we took on this cost, it would be more than our whole fire department. It would be, huge. So I think BC Ferries, and it doesn't mean we are advocating through that process, but the first step is to try to get Transport Canada to commit to keep that one, and not just that one, all of these remote ports, because there's a reason. They've been doing this for 15 years. They should stop spending tax dollars trying to get rid of things that are, just accept there's 17 ports they can't divest.
Thank you for those answers. Topic number 2 is the improvement district one. I only have one question and then a point to go along with it, or a broader question is, resubmission means that we've submitted it before, and so what happened to the first submission? Was it adopted or not adopted?
It was returned to us, and so it was not considered by the Assembly. And I'd ask our corporate officer perhaps to explain why that was.
Thank you, through the chair. They just wanted us to change some language to ensure that everything was verifiable. And in the previous time, there was not enough time to address that. So
we could correct that stuff and it would.
Okay. This resolution that's prepared in the package is different from the previous one.
Great. Okay.
The topic is the same though.
And so then, The libraries one, there's many resolutions that have already gone before AVICC and have been approved. And so part of the screening criteria now includes having something uniquely different than previous ones that have already been addressed, voted on, and either adopted or not adopted. And so is this resolution going to be significantly different than our other requests that have already been approved by AVICC? And if it's not significantly different, it may just get rejected anyway based on the fact that there's already approved resolutions exactly like that from last year, or very similar. And so that my question is this significantly different, or is it just trying to keep forwarding that because it's so urgently important to us? That's my question.
I have to honestly tell you that I don't have the two of them in front of me, and I can't speak to whether or not there are drastic changes. There are changes to it, but at the end of the day, you're right, you're still trying to go for the same goal.
Right, so if we use one of our three, it could be returned as saying not eligible because we already have that on the books.
Yeah, I can't spell that.
And then my last one was the ALR flexibility. One, my first question was already answered. It says, how do I get some pie? And I got the pie, so I'm good with that one. The other question I have for clarity is the pie representing the total footprint that does not increase the amount of land affected?
The answer to that is the current regulations talk about the total floor area. So even if you've got your buildings kind of going up vertically, it counts the floor area of all floors. Personally, I would love it if it actually was footprint and you got a bonus for the actual height elevation, but in order to keep it simple, I'm just essentially using the same policy, but not constraining it to 2 dwellings and just saying total floor area of the whole thing. And I think one of the reasons why they went with the floor area rather than lot coverage is concern around septic, because septic is sized typically on the total floor area of your structures, because septic can also remove variable.
Well, and floor area can increase the amount of impact to the total surface of the land, which the ALR is trying to preserve. So that was my first question. And then my second question, is this a request for legislative change or regulation change?
It's a very good question. And when reading,
you need to know that.
when reading through the provincial government's legislation, it seems to be legislation and regulation. It's legislation that affects the Agricultural Land Commission's regulation.
And then when's the last time this particular legislation and regulation were changed?
I believe it was 2018 and then 2021.
Okay. All right. Thanks for those answers.
And to clarify, in 2018, I think it's in the backgrounder, they went from you can have 1 dwelling plus a dwelling above an existing farm use building or a manufactured home, and you could have as many dwellings as you want as long as it was necessary for farm use. You could see how that was exploited. And so in 2018, the provincial government said, okay, you can only have 1 dwelling, that's it. There was significant community backlash from the farms, and there was also discussion at EBCM. The province came back and said, okay, for an interim period, you can have a manufactured home until a certain date. And that didn't seem to really fly with a lot of folks. And they said, okay, well, you can have a 90 square meter secondary. And a lot of the farmers just went, close enough, let's just take a breather. But now we're starting to see, like, there's a Facebook ALR Connect group, and other regional districts are starting to run into these challenges. And I've even seen it in my area where someone has a smaller house, but it's bigger than the 90 square meters, and they want to build a newer house, and they go, well, you got to tear down the old one and then you can build something new. And it's like, that doesn't seem to make sense. And most people would agree that the total floor area is really what matters, because we don't want to have agricultural land covered in houses, but we also want to make sure that, you know, we're not encouraging really big houses. And I think Blueberry Commons has been kind of a model that a lot of folks look at, but that's not allowed on ALR, because it's more than low.
So that begs the question then, should our resolution not address total footprint rather than
I would like it to also include total footprint, but in some conversations with some folks, there was some concern that might be too confusing to folks that are not intimately understanding of the agricultural land regulations right now.
Well, their whole purpose is to preserve agricultural land.
Yes.
But anyway.
Okay, thanks, Director Elliott. Opening the floor to further discussion. Questions? I'm not seeing any hands. So Director Fall.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And I just, I'll have a couple of comments on some of the other and questions on some of the other ones. So I think we have to choose 3 out of these 4, or, you know, we have to at least choose one to not do. You've heard from me about the one I put forward, and the comment on the second one on the improvement district, that one, and I have a question about that. So that was, we put a similar one forward last year. It went to AVICC, was in the not recommended block, was endorsed, went to UBCM and referred back. So it wasn't considered at UBCM. So it was referred back to the sponsor for fine tuning. So I went and checked on that. So that, I would say, I would categorize that one as time sensitive, in the sense that if we don't send it back in, then through the process, then, you know, then it won't have received its consideration despite receiving support at AVICC. So I think that one's time sensitive, and I'll just maybe ask a question, which is, you know, does it have to go, since it passed at AVICC and it's going, you know, it was UBCM that's referred it back to the sponsor for fine tuning. Is it correct to send it back, send it to AVICC? Does it got to go through the whole process again because the wording's changed, or is it, you know, just back to UBCM?
I'm going to defer to our corporate officer, who is the keeper of knowledge regarding such matters.
Thank you so much through the chair. That's a really good question. And I think we will likely have to go and ask AVICC executives that question.
Okay, I mean, I'm not, I suspect it might have to go back through to get it through the process, but you know, that popped in my head when I tried to unravel what happened here. I think in terms of time sensitivity, the 2 that I think are time sensitive is this one and the wharf one, the one I put forward, because the wharf is an urgent issue. We don't know when things might happen, but actions are taking place, and the dock isn't being maintained as well as it should be. And other, you know, when you look at some of the other problems of some of the other wharfs, things can happen quickly. Now, I do have, you know, so I do think from my point of view, it's a matter of choosing whether it's the library one or the ALR one, are of the 2 of not putting forward. Now, I'm, as a member of the Vancouver Island Regional Library Board, I really support libraries, but I will say this to clarify what happened with the library resolution, because I do share the concern that Director Elliott brought up. The resolution last year at UBCM, the libraries, several different libraries, or local governments with library representation, brought forward a special resolution number 3. That's about as high of a level of resolution at UBCM as you can have. Special resolution number 3, meaning special attention. The whole floor talked about it. The resolution that we have on before us here is parts A, B, and C are nearly identical. If you look at the wording of the one in the package, I'll read the one from SR3 that it talks about increased annual core funding for libraries to 30 million. It's exactly what we have and based on recommendations from the province's Select Standing Committee on Finance and Government Services, core funding be increased on a yearly basis in keeping with the cost of living and inflationary pressures. That's also almost exactly the same. And establish a dedicated capital funding program. That's almost exactly the same. So those 3 pieces are SR3, and SR3 was at the highest level. And we all heard the Premier stand up there and say, I love libraries, but you ain't getting a cent. That's what we all heard, without those words, more politically correct. Prior to that, at 2024 UBCM, there was a resolution that had been put forward, and the original one was almost the same as the SR3. At the last minute, or somehow before it got considered, it got revised, and the one that got revised and replaced, so it was endorsed. It was not endorsed as amended, but it got adopted at UBCM, is that the UBCM calling the provincial government to recognize the evolving and challenging situation for public libraries, as well as their unique role as community spaces, by establishing an advisory body per Section 52 of the Library Act, and blah, blah, blah. That's pretty much the exact same wording as the resolution we have. So it's not that I don't support it. I totally support what, you know, the idea of it. This is really taking those SR3 and the one from 2024 and putting them together, and just even the wording isn't really any different. It's doing the same thing. I think I do concur with the idea that you need to keep at it, And I would be very surprised if there aren't other libraries that will keep at, or other local governments keeping at the library. But if we have a bit of a conflict, I do have a concern that we would put this forward, and AVICC would say, we've already got those. They're basically on the books. They've been endorsed. They're on the books. The UBCM's position is the libraries need 30 million. We need this to increase with cost of living. We need capital funding, and we need an advisory body. So they've already got it. It's not that it's not important, but it wouldn't, even if it got through, it wouldn't add anything new. Whereas the other three are novel and new. So that's my opinion on it. I totally support it, but I think if I had to choose one, it would be with some level of regret, that one. But anyways, I'll leave it there.
Thank you very much, Director Paul. Director Brander.
I'll move that we submit items 1, 2, and 4. The AVICC for consideration.
Director Lennox has seconded that. Discussion on the motion on the table. And that's for 1, 2, and 4. Director Lennox.
Yeah, I just appreciate everybody's consideration on this. These are all important things. Really, Director Fall's summation is really what I was going to say when we got down to the brass tacks of it. I totally appreciate libraries, love the library. But I think that the other three are new, as was stated, and that's what I want to bring to the table and continue pressure for libraries. Thanks.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, I see Elliott and then Gisborne. And then I'll put myself on the list. Director Elliott.
Thank you, Chair. I'm in favor of the motion. I concur with my colleagues before me. And I wanted to add, just from my perspective, the most important one on here for me is libraries. But I don't think they're going to accept a resolution that's already been passed just last UBCM. We're not even a year away from having that special resolution be passed that covers it. And they specifically said at UBCM, one of their screening criteria, which we also voted on, would be to not allow motions that have already been, or resolutions that were already in their bank of repeat ones. So I think it doesn't help us to put it forward. It will likely get screened out and we'll only have 2. So, so I'm gonna vote in favor of the motion.
Thank you. Director Gisborne.
Thank you, Chair. I was a bit challenged, of course, when I came in because, I thought the library one was really important, but at the same time, I recall some of the discussions I had at UBCM and AVICC around resolutions, and I'm sure we all recall how many AVICCs and UBCMs we've been to that we didn't get through our resolution sessions. And that's a big issue, and especially for the AVICC executive and the UBCM, and they're putting their foot down going like, hey, we don't want to see repeats anymore. And I think even when the discussion around the library came up last UBCM, I heard someone going like, yeah, I'm in favor of this, but I know what the province is going to say. And so I think everyone around the table here supports the third resolution to support libraries, but, with the constraints and, we're a lot of these resolutions is to bring attention to the provincial government. The provincial government is well aware of the library issue. And as David Eby said, they've already made up their mind. They're not giving us any more money. So it's a heavy heart that one's not being considered, but the 3 that we have before us are fairly novel and unique. And I'm also really appreciative of the improvement district resolution, because that was one that I kept looking at going, we want to get these improvement districts dealt with, but unless we get that policy changed, the province is just going to keep saying, well, we got this policy and we're not going to change anything until the policy changes. And so, yeah, let's change the policy. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Director Gisborne. And next on the speakers list, I will say that and Director Fall, you'll be after me. I support the resolution, but that doesn't give us the mandate to just ignore libraries. I think we need to continue to meet with our MLA to explore, grant funding streams, to do anything we can to promote our library, because without it, we are not a livable community. So you can live without improvement districts or square footage for ALR or even boat docks, but library is an essential thing to the community. So let's not lose sight of that as we move forward. And I actually have a very quick question to our corporate officer. I recall putting this motion forward to UBCM, and that's where it was sent back. Did it actually go to AVICC last year? Because I'm not sure that it did.
It did.
It's just looking to our to the Legislative
did.
Services Coordinator. Oh, sorry, Rebecca, you're taking over the screen.
Showing everybody your homework.
But I'd have to look. I'm having trouble accessing our system right now. I
Okay,
was just going to, oh, maybe.
okay, Director Ball.
Yeah, so I can answer that question because I did looked back through to try to sort everything out. It was R39. It was a put in the resolutions package and a no recommendation, but it was endorsed and then sent to UBCM. But then UBCM put it into a referred resolution and referred it back to us. So it wasn't put before the UBCM membership, but the AVICC membership endorsed it. I just want to thank Director Brander for putting forward this resolution. I know these are tough things. We want to support libraries. As a trustee on the Vancouver Island Regional Library, what I want to do and what I commit to do is to bring this issue up at our AGM. We're going to have our AGM and our first meeting in February, and I will put on, there's 41. So Powell River Regional Library has one local government, well, two local governments that can maybe help it out to put forward resolutions. Vancouver Island Regional Library has 40 something. So we can work, I'll raise this and I'm sure it'll be a discussion on what to bring forward for UBCM and AVICC. And one of the things I really think we need to do is think outside the box. And that's what we tried to do. Several governments tried to do, supporting libraries, to come back with that one in 2024. And this is from the UBC. This is from the response. This is from the 2025 UBCM resolutions book. The province did not support increased funding as requested. They also did not support the 2024 resolution to establish an advisory body. The whole point of that advisory body request was they're not, we keep on asking them for more money and they don't. So let's do something else. Let's stop flogging a dead horse. Ask for the advisory body. Maybe they'll do that. And they still said no. So now I think just asking again is less useful than really trying to think outside the box and say, what do we need to do to support libraries that the province may at least get some engagement and discussion on? And I think what needs to happen is the province needs to understand a lot better how important libraries are, because they're absolutely essential. So I don't think this is about it not being an essential service, as everyone has said. I think it's about what's the appropriate action AVICC can take and what can we do. So I'm really thankful for the motion on the table, and I think we need to really try to put our hats on and think what we can do for libraries.
Thanks, Director Ball. Anything further before we vote? Seeing no hands, we'll call for the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried unanimously. Director Elliott.
Those didn't pertain to the motion, which is why I wanted to ask afterwards. Should we be considering other strategies like ministerial meetings focused on libraries or some such thing other than just resolutions? And when would be the appropriate time to look at an actual strategy for putting pressure on for libraries, and how we do that other than resolutions?
Okay, I'm not sure who wants to tackle that. It would be my thought that we could be and should be doing that at any time soon, because AVICC is coming up. That's our first real opportunity to meet with a whole selection of MLAs and decision makers. But I don't know if Director Brander is chair of the board or corporate officer, if you have a better answer than that. Okay.
Might it be appropriate to put it on a future agenda to discuss?
Yeah, and are you making a notice of motion?
Potentially. I was just trying to explore the options first, but maybe to the corporate officer, would that be the way to do that, or do you have a better idea?
Thank you, through the chair. So prior to the next committee of the whole agenda, we could develop a notice of motion to prioritize that, and we can discuss what the end goals are, what methods you would like to take, so we can have a comprehensive notice of motion.
Perfect. Thank you.
But corporate officer, that would mean we'd be having the notice of motion in February?
And discussing in March, yes.
Okay.
I think if we're not doing resolution, it's okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Some of those strategies would be attached to UBCM, which is, we still have lead time for.
Mm-hmm. I know, but AVICC comes up in April, so. Okay, you're happy. I'm happy. All right. You guys going?
Yeah.
We're about to go on to question period.
I know, I just realized that we are in the new business section, and I sent a notice of motion related to the fire department services. to our corporate officer when there was the presentation, and I was just going to read it out. We're not passing a motion or anything today. It's really just a notice of motion, and what's been sent to the corporate officers that the committee recommend that the board express its intent to meet with the Powell River City Council to discuss options and opportunities related to auto aid for regional district fire services. That's just a notice of motion, giving it to the assembly, and we can discuss it at the upcoming meeting.
Thank you for that, Director Gisborne. We are now on to question period. Questions out there for us, the committee of the whole.
Hello, Chair Galinsky from the Peak here.
Hi, Paul.
Just one question with regard to the delegation at the beginning of the committee. There was a Mr. Harris that spoke, and there was also a woman that spoke, and I didn't get her name. I'm hoping that the corporate officer would have that for me.
Yep, she has Maggie Palka, P-A-L-K-A.
I'm sorry, could I get the surname again, please, Chair?
P as in Peter,
Yeah.
A-L-K-A. Maggie.
Perfect. I thank you very much for the opportunity to pose questions, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Galinsky. All right, we are now on to proposed closed session. We don't need to read this. We just need to move and second it.
So moved.
Director Gisborne, seconded by Director Lennox. All in favor? Any opposed? Carried unanimous. We are going in.
So there is
Well,
Recording in progress.
Welcome back to Committee of the Whole. We have no rising report. Our meeting is adjourned. Thank you.